her life. Would you like to
All
start?
right. Sure, I can read for about 15 minutes. Canto 1, Chapter 1, Verse 2. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Religion includes four primary subjects, namely pious activities, economic development, satisfaction of the senses, and finally, liberation from material bondage. Irreligious life is a barbarous condition. Indeed, human life begins when religion begins. Eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating are the four principles of animal life. These are common both to animals and to human beings. But religion is the extra function of the human being. Without religion, human life is no better than animal life. Therefore, in human societies, there is some form of religion which aims at self-realization and which makes reference to man's eternal relationship with God. In the lower stages of human civilization, there is always competition to lord it over the material nature, or in other words, there is a continuous rivalry to satisfy the senses. Driven by such consciousness, man turns to religion. He thus performs pious activities or religious functions in order to gain something material. But if such material gains are obtainable in other ways, then so-called religion is neglected. This is the situation in modern civilization. Man is thriving economically, so at present he is not very interested in religion. Churches, mosques, or temples are now practically vacant. Men are more interested in factories, shops, and cinemas than in religious places which were erected by their forefathers. This practically proves that religion is performed for some economic gains. Economic gains are needed for sense gratification. Often when one is baffled in the pursuit of sense gratification, he takes to salvation and tries to become one with the Supreme Lord. Consequently, all these states are simply different types of sense gratification. In the Vedas, the above-mentioned four activities are prescribed in the regulative way so that there will not be any undue competition for sense gratification. But Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is transcendental to all these sense gratificatory activities. It is purely transcendental literature which can be understood only by the pure devotees of the Lord who are transcendental to competitive sense gratification. In the material world, there is keen competition between animal and animal, man and man, community and community, nation and nation. But the devotees of the Lord rise above such competitions. They do not compete with the materialist because they are on the path back to Godhead, where life is eternal and blissful. Such transcendentalists are non-envious and pure in heart. In the material world, everyone is envious of everyone else, and therefore there is competition. But the transcendental devotees of the Lord are not only free from material envy, but are well-wishers to everyone, and they strive to establish a competitionless society with God in the center. The contemporary socialist's conception of a competitionless society is artificial, because in the socialist state there is competition for the post of dictator. From the point of view of the Vedas, or from the point of view of common human activities, sense gratification is the basis of material life. There are three paths mentioned in the Vedas. One involves fruitive activities to gain promotion to better planets. Another involves worshipping different demigods for promotion to the planets of the demigods. And another involves realizing the absolute truth and his impersonal feature and becoming one with him. The impersonal aspect of the absolute truth is not the highest. Above the impersonal feature is the Paramatma feature, and above this is the personal feature of the absolute truth, or Bhagavan. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam gives information about the absolute truth in his personal feature. It is higher than impersonalist literatures and higher than the Jnana-Kanda division of the Vedas. It is even higher than the Karma-Kanda division and even higher than the Upasana-Kanda division, because it recommends the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Lord, Sri Krishna. In the Karma-Kanda, there is competition to reach heavenly planets for better sense gratification, and there is similar competition in the Jnana-Kanda and Upasana-Kanda. The Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is superior to all of these because it aims at the absolute truth, which is the substance or the root of all categories. From Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, one can come to know the substance as well as the categories. The substance is the absolute truth, the Supreme Lord, and all emanations are relative forms of energy. Nothing is apart from the substance, but at the same time, the energies are different from the substance. This conception is not contradictory. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam explicitly promulgates this simultaneously one and different philosophy of the Vedanta Sutra, which begins with the Janmadhyasya Sutra. This knowledge that the energy of the Lord is simultaneously one with and different from the Lord is an answer to the mental speculator's attempt to divide the energy as the absolute. To establish the energy as the absolute. When this knowledge is factually understood, one sees the conceptions of monism and dualism to be imperfect. Development of this transcendental consciousness grounded in the conception of simultaneously one and different leads one immediately to the stage of freedom from the threefold miseries. The threefold miseries are those miseries which arise from the mind and body, those miseries inflicted by other living beings, and those miseries arising from natural catastrophes over which one has no control. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam begins with the surrender of the devotee unto the Absolute Person. The devotee is fully aware that he is one with the Absolute and at the same time in the eternal position of servant to the Absolute. In the material conception, one falsely thinks himself the Lord of all he surveys, and therefore he is always troubled by the threefold miseries of life. But as soon as one comes to know his real position as transcendental servant, he at once becomes free from all miseries. As long as the living entity is trying to master material nature, there is no possibility of his becoming servant of the Supreme. Service to the Lord is rendered in pure consciousness of one's spiritual identity. By service, one is immediately free from material encumbrances. Over and above this, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is a personal commentation on the Vedanta Sutra by Sri Vyasadeva. It was written in the maturity of his spiritual life through the mercy of Narada. Sri Vyasadeva is the authorized incarnation of Narayana, the personality of Godhead. Therefore, there is no question as to his authority. He is the author of all other Vedic literatures, yet he recommends the study of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam above all others. In other Puranas, there are different methods set forth by which one can worship the demigods, but in the Bhagavatam, only the Supreme Lord is mentioned. The Supreme Lord is the total body, and the demigods are the different parts of that body. Consequently, by worshipping the Supreme Lord, one does not need to worship the demigods. Supreme Lord becomes fixed in the heart of the devotee immediately. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam as the spotless Purana and distinguishes it from all other Puranas. The proper method for receiving this transcendental message is to hear it submissively. A challenging attitude cannot help one realize this transcendental message. One particular word is used herein for proper guidance. This word is shu. One must be anxious to hear this transcendental message. The desire to sincerely hear is the first qualification. Less fortunate persons are not at all interested in hearing the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. The process is simple, but the application is difficult. Unfortunate people find enough time to hear idle social and political conversations, but when invited to attend a meeting of devotees to hear Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, they suddenly become reluctant. Sometimes, professional readers of the Bhagavatam immediately plunge into the confidential topics of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, which they seemingly interpret as sex literature. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is meant to be heard from the beginning. Those who are fit to assimilate this work are mentioned in this shloka. One becomes qualified to hear Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam after many pious deeds. The intelligent person, with thoughtful discretion, can be assured by the great sage Vyasadeva that he can realize the Supreme Personality directly by hearing Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Without undergoing the different stages of realization set forth in the Vedas, one can be lifted immediately to the position of Paramahamsa simply by agreeing to receive this message. Should we hand it off here since we just finished the verse?
Sure, I can read the next one. Okay. O expert and thoughtful man, relish Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Shukdev Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. In the two previous shlokas, it has been definitely proved that the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is a sublime literature. In the two previous shlokas, it has been definitely proved that the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is a sublime literature which surpasses all other Vedic scriptures due to its transcendental qualities. It is transcendental to all mundane activities and mundane knowledge. In this shloka, it is stated that Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is not only a superior literature but is the ripened fruit of all Vedic literatures. In other words, it is the cream of all Vedic knowledge. Considering all this, patient and submissive hearing is definitely essential. With great respect and attention, one should receive the message and lessons imparted by Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. The Vedas are compared to the desire tree because they contain all things knowable by man. They deal with mundane necessities as well as spiritual realizations. The Vedas contains regulative principles of knowledge covering social, political, religious, economic, military, medicinal, chemical, physical and metaphysical subject matter, and all that may be necessary to keep the body and soul together. Above and beyond all this are specific directions for spiritual realization. Regulative knowledge involves a gradual raising of the living entity to the spiritual platform, and the highest spiritual realization is knowledge that the personality of Godhead is the reservoir of all spiritual tastes or rasas. Every living entity beginning from Brahma, the firstborn living being within the material world, down to the insignificant ant, desires to relish some sort of taste derived from sense perceptions. The sensual perceptions are technically called rasas. Such rasas are of different varieties. In revealed scriptures, following 12 varieties of rasas are enumerated: Rudra, anger; Adbhuta, wonder; Shringar, conjugal love; Hasya, comedy; Veera, chivalry; Daya, mercy; Dasya, servitorship; Sakhya, fraternity; Bhayanaka, horror; Bibhatsa, shock; Shanta, neutrality; Vatsalya, parenthood. The sum total of all rasas is called affection or love. Primarily, such signs of love are manifested in adoration, service, friendship, parental affection and conjugal love. And when these five are absent, love is present indirectly in anger, wonder, comedy, chivalry, fear, shock and so on. For example, when a man is in love with a woman, the rasa is called conjugal love. But when such love affairs are disturbed, there may be wonder, anger, shock, even horror. Sometimes love affairs between two persons culminate in ghastly murder scenes. Such rasa are displayed between men and different animal and between animal and animal. There is no possibility of an exchange or rasa between man and an animal or between man and any other species of living being within the material world. The rasas are exchanged between members of the same species, but as far as the spirit souls are concerned, they are one qualitatively with the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the rasas were originally exchanged between the spiritual living being and the spiritual whole, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The spiritual existence or the rasa is fully exhibited in spiritual existence between living beings and the Supreme Lord. Krishna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is therefore described in the Shruti mantras, Vedic hymns, as the fountainhead of all rasas. When one associates with the Supreme Lord and engages one's constitutional rasa with the Lord, then the living being is actually happy. These Shruti mantras indicate that every living being has its constitutional position, which is endowed with a particular type of rasa to be exchanged with the personality of Godhead. In the liberated condition only, the primary rasa is experienced in full. In the material existence, the rasa is experienced in the perverted form, which is temporary, and thus the rasas of the material world are exhibited in the material form of Rudra and so on. Therefore, one who attains full knowledge of these different rasas, which are basic principles of activities, can understand the false representation of the original rasas, which are reflected in the material world. The learned scholars seek to relish real rasa in the spiritual form. In the beginning, he desires to become one with Supreme. Thus, less intelligent transcendentalists cannot go beyond the conception of becoming one with the Supreme Whole, all without knowing the different rasas. In this shloka, it is definitely stated that the spiritual rasa, which is relished even in the liberated stage, can be experienced in the literature of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Due to its being the ripened fruit of all Vedic knowledge, by submissive hearing the transcendental literature, one can attain the full pleasure of his heart's desire. One must be very careful to hear the message from the right source. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is exactly received from the right source. It was bought by Narad Muni from the spiritual world and given to his disciple Srila Vyasadeva. The latter in turn delivered the message to his son Srila Shukdev Goswami, and Srila Shukdev Goswami delivered the message to Maharaj Parikshit just 7 days before the king's death. Srila Shukdev Goswami was a liberated soul from his very birth. He was liberated even in the womb of his mother, and he did not undergo any sort of spiritual training after his birth. At birth, no one is qualified, neither in the mundane nor in the spiritual sense. But Sri Shukdev Goswami, due to his being a perfect liberated soul, did not have to undergo an evolutionary process for spiritual realization. Yet, despite his being a completely liberated person situated in the transcendental position above the three material modes, he was attached to the transcendental rasa of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is adored by a liberated soul who sing Vedic hymns. The Supreme Lord's pastimes are more attractive to liberated souls than to mundane people. He is of necessity not impersonal, because it is only possible to carry on transcendental rasa with a person. In the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are narrated, and the narration is systematically depicted by Srila Shukdev Goswami. Thus, the subject matter is appealing to all classes of persons, including those who seek liberation and those who seek to become one with the Supreme Whole. In Sanskrit, the parrot is also known as shuka. When a ripened fruit is cut by the red beaks of such birds, the sweet flavor is enhanced. The Vedic fruit, which is mature and ripe, is knowledgeable. In knowledge is spoken through the lips of Srila Shukdev Goswami. The Vedic fruit, which is mature and ripe in knowledge, is spoken through the lips of Srila Shukdev Goswami, who is compared to the parrot not for his ability to recite Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam exactly as he heard it from his learned father, but for his ability to present the work in a manner that would appeal to all classes of men. The subject matter is so presented through the lips of Srila Shukdev Goswami that any sincere listener that hears submissively can at once relish transcendental taste which are distinct from the perverted taste of the material world. The ripened fruit is not dropped all of a sudden from the highest planet of Krishna Loka, rather it has come down carefully through the chain of disciplic succession without changing or disturbance. Foolish people who are not in the transcendental disciplic succession commit great blunders by trying to understand the highest transcendental rasa known as the rasa dance without following in the footsteps of Srila Shukdev Goswami, who presents the fruit very carefully by stages of transcendental realization. One should be intelligent enough to know the position of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam by considering personality like Srila Shukdev Goswami, who deals with the subject so carefully. This process of disciplic succession of Bhagavata school suggests that in the future also Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam has to be understood from a person who is factually a representative of Srila Shukdev Goswami. A professional man who makes business out of reciting the Bhagavatam illegally is certainly not a representative of Srila Shukdev Goswami. A professional man who makes business out of reciting Bhagavatam illegally is certainly not a representative of Srila Shukdev Goswami. Such a man's business is only to earn livelihood. Therefore, one should refrain from hearing the lectures of such professional men. Such men usually go to the most confidential part of the literature without undergoing the gradual process of understanding this grave subject. They usually plunge into the subject matter of the rasa dance, which is misunderstood by foolish classes of men. Some of them take this to be immoral, while others try to cover it up by their own stupid interpretations. They have no desire to follow in the footsteps of Srila Shukdev Goswami. One should conclude, therefore, that the serious student of the rasa should receive the message of Bhagavatam in the chain of distinct succession from Srila Shukdev Goswami, who describes the Bhagavatam from its very beginning, and not whimsically to satisfy the mundaner who has very little knowledge in transcendental science. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is so carefully presented that a sincere and serious person can at once enjoy the ripened fruit of Vedic knowledge simply by drinking the nectarian juice through the mouth of Srila Shukdev Goswami or his bona fide representative. Should we do just one more shloka? It's very small.
Yeah, let's do it.
Once in a holy place in the forest of Naimisharanya, great sages headed by sage Shaunaka Rishi assembled to perform a great 1,000-year sacrifice for the satisfaction of the Lord and his devotees. The prelude of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam was spoken in the previous 3 shlokas. Now the main topic of this great literature is being presented. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, after its first recitation by Srila Shukdev Goswami, was repeated for the second time at Naimisharanya. In the Vaivaya Tantra, it is said that Brahma, the engineer of this particular universe, contemplated a great wheel which could enclose the universe. The hub of this great circle was fixed at a particular place known as Naimisharanya. Similarly, there is another reference to the forest of Naimisharanya in Varaha Puran, where it is stated that by performance of sacrifice at this place, the strength of demoniac people is curtailed. Thus, Brahmana preferred Naimisharanya for such specific performances. The devotees of Lord Vishnu offer all kinds of sacrifices for his pleasure. The devotees are always attached to the service of the Lord, whereas fallen souls are attached to the pleasure of material existence. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that anything performed in the material world for any reason other than the pleasure of the Lord Vishnu causes further bondage for the performer. It is enjoined therefore that all act must be performed sacrificially for the satisfaction of Vishnu and his devotees. This will bring peace and prosperity. The great sages are always anxious to do good to the people in general, and as such, the sages headed by Shaunaka and others assembled at the holy place of Naimisharanya with a program of performing a great and continuous chain of sacrificial ceremonies. Forgetful men do not know the right path for peace and prosperity. However, the sages know it well, and therefore, for the good of all men, they are always anxious to perform acts which may bring about peace in the world. They are sincere friends to all living entities, and at the risk of great personal inconvenience, they are always engaged in the service of the Lord for the good of all people. Lord Vishnu is just like a great tree, and all others, including the demigods, men, Siddhas, Charanas, Vidyadharas, and other living entities, are like branches, twigs, and leaves. Lord Vishnu is just like a great tree, and all other, including demigods, man, siddhas, charanas, vidyadharas, and other living entities, are like branches, twigs, and leaves of the tree. By pouring water on the root of the tree, all the parts of the tree are automatically nourished. Only those branches and leaves which are detached cannot be so satisfied. Detached branches and leaves dry up gradually despite all watering attempts. Similarly, human society, when it is detached from personality of Godhead, like detached branches and leaves, is not capable of being watered, and one attempting to do so is simply wasting his energies and resources. The modern materialistic society is detached from its relation to the Supreme Lord, and all its plans were being made by atheistic leaders are sure to be baffled at every step, yet they do not wake up to this. In this age, the congregational chanting of the holy names of the Lord is the prescribed method for waking up. The ways and means are most scientifically presented by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and intelligent persons may take advantage of his teachings in order to bring about real peace and prosperity. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is also presented for the same purpose, and this will be explained more specifically later in the text. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Gurudev.